Hey guys, I am back once again to talk some more about Batman Arkham City. What is this, the third video that I've made about this game? On Tuesday, May 29th, a new and supposedly the final DLC pack was released for Arkham City called Harley Quinn's Revenge. The DLC is an epilogue to the game's main story where you play as Robin. I was really looking forward to this DLC pack because even though the ending to Arkham City was very good, it left a lot of loose ends and questions that I wanted answered. Well, I purchased the DLC as soon as it became available, and I played through the entire expansion, and I'm here to share my thoughts about the DLC. I warn you now, this video is going to have massive spoilers for Batman Arkham City, so if you haven't beaten the game yet, do not watch this video. Otherwise, hear what I have to say. Some of the questions that went through my mind after seeing Arkham City's ending were, what becomes of Arkham City? Does the installation get shut down? How does the public react when they find out that Hugo Strange was an evil madman? What about all of those people that the Joker poisoned? Do they live or do they die? How did the city react to the Joker's death? One of the themes that was introduced into Arkham City was the moral dilemma of whether or not Batman should go all out and try to save the city's criminal population. Is it right to kill Gotham's entire criminal population for the good of the innocent civilians? I was curious to see how the city reacted when they found out that Arkham City was just a ploy to kill the city's entire criminal population. Would they support it, or would they try to get Arkham City shut down in the name of human decency? I thought that it would be interesting to see that moral conflict play out and see what happened to Arkham City after all the shit went down. The ending to Arkham City was very good, but the story just kind of dropped a bombshell and then cut to black, leaving a ton of unanswered questions. I'm sad to say that Harley's Revenge doesn't answer any of those questions. The DLC does almost nothing to add closure to the game's ending. I'm going to give you a brief run-through of the expansion's plot. Harley has had a complete mental breakdown since the Joker's death, and she's become obsessed with getting payback against Batman. She's abducted 3 cops and taken them hostage inside the steel mill, which the Joker was using as his hideout during the main game. Batman went in to rescue the cops, but he was captured and has been missing for 2 days, so Robin goes into Arkham City to rescue Batman. The expansion takes maybe 2 hours to complete, slightly more for me since my computer can't run the game very well. That really is the extent of the expansion's story. It doesn't tie up any loose ends from the game's bombshell ending. There's really only one thing that the expansion adds to the game's story. It establishes that Batman is really torn up about the Joker's death. His partners are worried about him, several thugs throughout the game talk about how he's barely been seen since the Joker died, and as you play the expansion you notice from Batman's voice and dialogue that he's even more ill-tempered than normal.
The code. Give me it, or get ready to hurt.
Here it is! Please, I don't want any trouble!
Too late.
I guess that's a big compliment to Kevin Conroy's voice acting, that he can actually manage to make Batman sound even more pissed off than normal. My problem with the expansion is that it doesn't really delve into what Batman is thinking about or what he's obsessing over in the wake of the Joker's death. The expansion just tells you that Batman is pissed off, and it doesn't explain why or delve into it. Basically, rather than add closure to Arkham City's ending, the expansion just adds more cliffhangers to build off of in the next Arkham game. Now, the main attraction to Harley's Revenge is that you play the campaign as Robin. The first thought that crossed my mind upon hearing that was, does the expansion let you use Robin to explore the city in story mode? Sadly, the answer is no. Harley's Revenge is its own option on the game's main menu, and it exists completely separate from the game's main story. Hell, you can even play Harley's Revenge before you beat the main game, just in case you feel like spoiling the ending for yourself. About half of the Harley's Revenge expansion has you play as Robin, while the other half has you play as Batman, and while you're playing as Robin, you're stuck inside a linear map. You never step out into the city's sandbox, aside from a portion of the campaign where Batman hunts down some informants. The expansion takes place in a new section of the steel mill that does not appear in the main story campaign, so at least the expansion scenery and map are different. The game also has newly skinned enemies and a few brief sections where you have to avoid snipers or use Robin's unique gadgets to get around obstacles, neither of which you find in the main story. You can tell that real effort was put into making Harley's Revenge a unique experience, and it wasn't just copied and pasted from the game's main story. The expansion also has one boss fight where Robin has to take down Harley and a room full of goons in a Predator section. If that sounds vaguely familiar, it's because the Harley Quinn boss fight is a complete retread of the Two-Face boss fight from the Catwoman DLC. The upside is that the Harley boss fight is far less annoying than the Two-Face boss fight because enemies actually stay down after you take them out. The downside is that the room that lets you fight Harley Quinn and her goons is so elaborate that it took me about 5 minutes to find the exit after I took down all of the enemies. Okay, maybe I'm just stupid. Much like the main story, there are some Easter eggs hidden in the expansion as well. In the main game, if you look on the ground next to Harley's Arkham Asylum costume, you find a pregnancy test that reads positive, indicating that Harley is pregnant. However, in Harley's Revenge, you find a crib with Scarface inside it, and you see a pregnancy test that reads negative. Did Harley have a miscarriage or an abortion? The cynical bastard in me wonders if the writers couldn't figure out what to do with Harley's baby in the next game, but who knows, the expansion doesn't tell you what happened. Maybe she's carrying Schrodinger's baby, she's pregnant and not pregnant at the same time. There's a portion of the expansion that shows Batman entering the steel mill before he was captured. If you talk to Commissioner Gordon before entering the steel mill, you get a very curious bit of dialogue.
When this mess is cleared up, we need to talk about that other problem. Remember?
What is he talking about, I wonder? Does their secret have something to do with Harley's baby? That's my big problem with the expansion. It doesn't add closure to any of the lingering questions from Arkham City, it just raises new questions. Also, at the end of the expansion, Batman charges out of Harley's hideout as it explodes, and the freshly repaired Batsuit gets damaged again. Am I the only one who noticed that the suit looks exactly the same in this cutscene as it does at the end of the main game? Strange coincidence, isn't it? It's almost like they reused the exact same character model over again. I've gone back and forth over whether or not I should recommend that you buy the Harley's Revenge DLC. I would say that if you wanted to play as Robin, you could just download the Robin DLC and use him in the challenge maps, but then again, it is more satisfying to play as a character if you're using them in a structured story mode. At the end of the day, Harley's Revenge is a fun expansion. It's 2 extra hours of Arkham City, which is always a good thing. I just wanted on the record that I was tremendously disappointed with the expansion story, and I was left thinking, that's it, when the expansion was over. The expansion has its own story that's fairly satisfying to play through, but the expansion story doesn't do anything to wrap up the story's loose ends, and that's what I was looking forward to most with this expansion. Bitter disappointment aside, Harley's Revenge is pretty fun to play, and it's a cool, albeit completely pointless, addition to Arkham City. I'd say go ahead and buy the expansion if you want, just don't expect any of your questions to be answered. We'll have to wait for Arkham World for that. And yes, they are making a third Arkham game. Go look up Joker's VGA acceptance speech on YouTube. They are making a third Arkham game, and it will be glorious!